Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we will be reviewing the unique title by the band Secondhand called Death May Be Your Santa Claus.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So this 1971 album has a lot of different and unique ideas on it, and I think the best way to share them with you is just letting you hear my favorite bits of this album. So enjoy!
The lights down low, you burn like a fire. Is this your love or just desire?
So when making these videos, I try and make them more informative and conclusive, and one of the ways I do so is by going on to various websites. So I usually try and look it up on Wikipedia, and then I go to a website called Prog Archives, which is a great place to actually read about a lot of prog albums. And specifically, this album did not have a very lengthy Wikipedia article, so the Prog Archives have helped me a lot in understanding what came before and why was this album made. Now, one person actually wrote on this album that it sounds really like Galactic Zoo Dossier, but better. And leave the obvious coincidence of the fact that I reviewed this album yesterday, I think that that description is really pretty good in describing what this album actually is. This is a pretty experimental album and it goes a lot of different places in trying to figure out where it is, but I think the musicianship and the actual talent put on here is really quite better, and it's a lot more accessible to the public than what we heard yesterday in Galactic Zoo Dossier. So reading about Secondhand a bit, I noticed that they had a pretty turbulent time before recording this album. They were under a different record label and under different names, and this lineup basically featured a new person on it called Rob Elliott, and Rob Elliott is the singer on here, and he is also with his founding member brother called Ken Elliott, and they are featuring all different artists on here when making this album. Now, one interesting thing to point out on this album, they didn't really have a guitarist, and beside one song, which I'm not entirely sure which one it is, they only featured guitar once on this entire album. It's not a concept, they just didn't seem to have a guitarist at the time. So when it comes to what's heard on this album, I think two things really shine through. The first one being Rob Elliott's singing. He came on here first time and actually did some vocals, and his vocals are quite amazing. They actually really sound like what you'd get if you mashed Captain Beefheart with Frank Zappa all together. And of course, Rob himself pointed out that he was really inspired by the singing of Arthur Brown. And when it comes to his founding member brother Ken Elliott, Ken actually learned to play the harmonica and the piano for the band itself, and he did catch on to that quite quick, and he became a talent in the field basically. And you can listen to this album and you can see that the piano and all the keyboard parts, they're really the driving force of this album. They're omnipresent, they're always there, and they're really good. And yeah, I love the fact that he uses a mellotron and Moogs and other different type of keyboard instruments all over the place to actually match what the style of the songs are going for. And this album, it has no dead points. It really is just exciting and exhilarating at every single point. It's very innovative, and I think the time just flew by when listening to this album. I really started off and I didn't expect it to be over by the time it actually reached the end. And speaking about the end, it really made me laugh quite a bit because the singer basically dies at the end. He like coughs out and just like, you know, starts squiggling all around and just fucking dies at the end, I guess. I don't know, or faints. It's pretty freaking funny, and I think that albums like these that know they take themselves seriously but not too shabby still make some hilarious moments on the album like those, and I found that to be really nice. And I'm sweet talking this album, and this is fine, but there are a few flaws in this album. But I'm gonna point out the most obvious one, and I think that's the mixing on here. A lot of the instruments and the singing are very subdued throughout the entire album itself, and I find that to be really annoying because I'm looking to hear, not to, mute everything. I'm looking to hear everything. They should all pop out, and this is a poppy album. It just feels like it's not really going all the way through with the mixing and the amplification of most things. Although, I do have to say that there is one song in particular that takes real good advantage of that, and that song is Cyclops. Now, you should know that that is my favorite track off this album because it is very mesmerizingly good for a lot of different reasons than most good songs. The fact is, everything on this track is really subdued, it's really quiet, and it just builds up one bit by bit. And another thing I really liked about it is the fact that they had those toned down drums, so you had pretty intense drum playing at some parts, but they were always a bit quiet and subdued, and they just kept amplifying throughout the album, and I found that to be really cool. And that being a unique song, I think I should point out as well that all the songs on this album are unique in of themselves. I love the fact that the band just tries something new with each song and it sounds different and it's cool single time, because I really love that fluidity. Now, I do get why bands would want to make similar songs throughout an entire album, because if something sticks, you want to stick it all the way through, but they just went ahead and did no balls off the wall and just, tried a lot of different new things, and they all came right in place. So with a cool album, you should probably get a cool cover. Now, I'm saying this cover is cool, but I don't think it's a good cover. It is, if you don't know it, I'm going to show it right here next to me. It is made out of what I believe to be paper cuttings, and the thing about it is you can't really make anything pop out all that well if you make everything out of cuttings. And that is what is going on around here, at least I believe so. It is too colorful in my opinion, and I think the fact that there's so many colors on here, it just leaves out the point of focus basically. And something about this entire cover is seemingly nice, seemingly idealistic, but on the execution itself, it just falls short. So if I had to rate this album, I'd give it a funky 7 out of 10. I think it's a good album. I really enjoyed listening to it, and as I said, time just flew by when listening to it, so that means a lot. It's not a perfect album by any means, but I do think that it's a great listen for anyone who's looking for some quality prog and some quality experimental music which really sticks with the listener. So that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this one, and you should stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to The Mountain by Haken, probably their most known and most critically acclaimed album so far. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.